I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Here we go. Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. We are live on YouTube. If you're listening to us via the audio platforms, a big hello to you too. I can see that the punctuality police are out in force again today because, we are a few minutes late. It's just the way of the world. It's what happens. That's the great thing about being live on YouTube and not on the radio or on the TV. There aren't specific time slots. You can just basically do as and what you please, as and when you please. And here we are. Did take a couple of minutes because I wanted to get a few notes down of importance to make sure that I don't forget them during this show, because we've got a jam-packed edition of the podcast to bring you. First of all, we're going to be reacting to Arsenal's victory in the Florida Cup over Chelsea. We're going to be breaking that game down. We're going to be breaking down the performance whilst discussing a number of individuals. We're going to be reacting to Mikel Arteta's comments post-match as well. We're going to be focusing a little bit on William Saliba and what we've seen from him. We'll be discussing you guys' thoughts and comments from the live chat box, but perhaps most appealing to you guys in the chat box, we're going to be revealing the 3 winners of our shirt giveaway competition. We've got 1 from our members group, and we've got 2 winners from the wider Chronicles of a Gooner family. And you might be thinking, why do the members only get 1 entry? Well, because there are far fewer members. So even still, you've got a much, much bigger chance of winning. But we've also got a lot of people that listen to this podcast on a daily basis on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, basically all of the audio platforms, and they cannot sign up and become members because that function is not available on those platforms. So I wanted to make it as fair as possible. And bearing in mind, there are far more non-members than there are members. If you are a member, even though there's only 1 shirt going out to you guys, you've still got a much, much greater chance of it being you. So let's break it down. Arsenal absolutely battered Chelsea last night, this morning, whatever it was. It's been, I've really enjoyed the US tour because I think that a lot of positives have come off the back of it, and we'll go on to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But one of the big difficulties has been the time differences. I mean, my God, I said it after. I think I said it after the Orlando game. Was it after the Orlando game? I think I said it after the Everton game as well. But it just makes me realize and respect so much more the sacrifice that some of you guys overseas make to watch Arsenal and to keep up with everything Arsenal and to keep across the games. It's so incredible to think that people do that every week. I mean, I've done it for 3 games and I've really struggled. And, people have been asking me over the last couple of days and over the last week or so while the tour's been going on, 8-10 days, whatever it's been, people have been saying, are you doing a watch along for this game? Are you doing a watch along for that game? And the reason I haven't is just because I've been, I've just been knackered. As a lot of you will know, I'm doing a lot of other work as well. Recently started doing some reporting for BBC Radio London. And the last 3 Saturdays have seen me travel to 3 different games. And yesterday I was at Luton Town's Kenilworth Road. Of course, Luton Town, who made the playoffs in the Championship last season. They welcomed West Ham to Kenilworth Road, and it was a really interesting and intriguing game. But I did get back from that quite late, and by the time you sit down, you have something to eat, you look at the time and you think, my God, Arsenal are kicking off in a few hours. I need to get some rest because I need to be awake and concentrated. And thankfully, the performance from Arsenal against Chelsea played a massive part in keeping me interested. I mean, some of the other games, particularly in the second half, have really dropped off, whereas this one didn't. And so this one, although I'd say the last 15 minutes probably turned into a little bit of a lull until Arsenal got their 4th goal, I was interested and I was intrigued throughout. And, that made it a lot easier staying up through the night. But there was no chance I was going to sit here with a camera in my face, with bright lights in my face, trying to conduct a watch along to a relatively good standard, whilst of course I was I was half asleep. So yeah, that was never going to work. In hindsight, I probably could have done it because I was alert enough to have done it. But yeah, leading up to it, you just dread it, don't you? You just dread it. But anyway, let's get into the game. Let's start breaking it down. And let's kick off, I guess, by looking at the team that Mikel Arteta selected. This was the team that started the game for the Arsenal. It was Aaron Ramsdale in goal. It was a back four of Ben White at right back. William Saliba was at centre back alongside Gabriel, with Zinchenko making his Arsenal debut at left back. The midfield was Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, and Martin Ødegaard, with Martinelli, Saka, and Gabriel Jesus making up the attack. So I look at this team and I think this is a really, really positive team. And, you know, I think that for me, there's question marks, or there were question marks at least, around whether William Saliba should come straight into the side or whether William Saliba should start on the bench, bide his time, get some time to embed in, get some time to kind of get used to the surroundings, get used to the system, get used to exactly what it is that Mikel Arteta is going to be demanding from him, and basically wait for his opportunity when one of, Gabriel or Ben White was unavailable. Obviously, the absence of the fullbacks has played a big part in this because, when you think about it, the chances are that had Tomiyasu been fit, he would have played. Had Kieran Tierney been fit, I'm sure he would have got the nod as well. We talk about Zinchenko coming in. Mikel Arteta, as I mentioned on the video we dropped the other day, was very keen and very adamant and very, insistent on saying that he felt that Zinchenko was coming in as both, as a left back and as a midfielder, and wasn't going to be tied down to just the one position. But obviously with Kieran Tierney's problems, with Tomiyasu's problems on the other side, it led to a little bit of a reshuffle at the back. And I wasn't quite sure how this was going to work. And the reason for that is that Zinchenko is very much a left back that likes to step into the midfield, and likes to get forward and likes to try and influence the game. But I think what you have when you have Martinelli in the side is a wide player who really does like to start from wide. And that almost limits the opportunities as a fullback to make overlapping runs. What it does do, though, is encourage you to drift infield and into a different space, a space in which Alexander Zinchenko, getting confused because everybody keeps calling him bloody Alex, but Zinchenko is actually very comfortable in drifting into those midfield-like spaces. So actually that works quite well. And then what you get is the opportunity for Gabriel, Saliba, and White to just kind of shuffle across and become a back three. Remember, all of them are centre-backs by trade. And then you end up with something that looks a little bit more like this. And actually, I think that gives us that in-game flexibility, doesn't it? And I think that's one of the reasons that Mikel Arteta, when he was looking for a right back, went out and got Takahiro Tomiyasu, because he wants someone who can be a centre-back as part of a three when Arsenal decide to push an extra player into that midfield. That's why Tomiyasu has been such a good fit. And that's why I think, apart from him being a better player, you'll probably see now with the arrival of William Saliba, when we're without a right back, you'll probably see, or a natural right back, you'll probably see Ben White being put into that position more so than Cedric, because of that ability to shapeshift and turn it into a bit of a back three, push that additional player into the midfield and try become a little bit more dominant and a little bit more controlling that way. So I think that was really interesting to note. And I think that's been a common theme of Mikel Arteta's side in the last 12 months or so. So I expect Tomiyasu is an option there, but we know he's got an ongoing injury issue that we just can't seem to get past at the moment. We'll come on to talk about what Mikel Arteta had to say about his fitness a little bit later on. But, William Saliba coming in there, he just looks so composed and so confident and so dominating and intimidating. And he looks like everything you want your centre half to be. And listen, there was a lot of debate about whether it was right to let him go. There was a lot of debate whether it was right to send him out on loan again last season. But based on what I've seen of him in preseason, and granted it is just preseason, and when the Premier League starts, it's going to be a totally different animal. I mean, Palace away on a Friday night is going to be something of a bit of a baptism of fire for him if he does start the game for Arsenal. But the point I'm trying to make here is that I don't believe that William Saliba 12 months ago was as mature and as assured in himself as he is today. And therefore, we've brought back a much, much better player. Could we have done with him at various points last season? Absolutely. But that is a risk you take. That is the trade-off for getting your player guaranteed minutes and guaranteed opportunities that will help him develop and help him become a much better player. The other side that poses an element of risk is that clearly he wasn't too happy with his treatment at Arsenal. And so as a consequence of that, there's the risk that he might not want to stay at the club. But it's over to Arsenal now to prove to him that they really value him. And I think when you listen to the words that have been coming from Mikel Arteta over the last sort of 12, 24 hours, you do get the feeling that he really does believe in him, that he really does trust in him. And hopefully that's enough to persuade William Saliba that his future should be here. When we move into the midfield, I'll come back to Zinchenko in a minute, but when we move into the midfield, Xhaka, Partey, Ødegaard, that's a pretty damn good midfield. I felt really, really confident each and every time those three played together in the Premier League last season. The problem arose when we started to be without one and sometimes in some cases two of them. Then we look like a totally different animal. And where I agree with people who are a little bit concerned going into the new campaign is that the drop off after those three is so significant. Said it before, El Neni, Lokonga, Maitland-Niles. These are not players on the same level. You'd like to think that when Kieran Tierney is back fit and available, Alexander Zinchenko could be used as one of those midfielders, and that is an instant upgrade on the likes of El Neni, Lokonga, I would say at this stage, and Maitland-Niles, for example. So, we are adding depth, but we're not without our injury problems even right now. I mean, you look at that team, and we'll come on to touch it on the bench in a minute. In fact, let me just find the bench so I can read it out to you guys, because this was one of the things that really kind of stuck out for me when I was watching the game yesterday and in the lead up to kickoff, when I was obviously looking at the team and deciding whether it was worth staying awake on it. And I'm just kidding. But look, you look at that bench: Turner, Bellerin, Walters, Cedric, Tavares, Mari, Holding, Maitland-Niles, Lokonga, El Neni, Marquinhos, Pepe, Nelson, Balogun, and Nketiah. It doesn't exactly fill you with confidence that, you can backfill this team. But the minute you add Kieran Tierney into that, Fabio Vieira, Takahiro Tomiyasu, and Emil Smith-Rowe into that, all of a sudden the bench looks a lot stronger. And of course, you're not going to be able to name, 51 players on the substitutes bench when it comes to the Premier League. But the point I'm making is that, yes, this team looked good on paper, but it's still without some really key components. It's still without some really key players in terms of the squad, and players that would definitely enhance the overall quality available to Mikel Arteta. Let's circle back just quickly to Zinchenko, because obviously he made his Arsenal debut. What did I think of it? I thought he looked so controlled in possession, really technically sound, which is exactly what you want. I talked about those runs and the ability to step into the midfield. I did think there was a couple of times where he got caught in possession, not necessarily him himself giving the ball away, but where Arsenal were caught in possession and he was right up the pitch and had to get back. Took a bit of time. But again, I go back to the point I made earlier. Having that ability with Gabriel, Saliba and White in the rest of the defense to shapeshift into a back three and cover that space and cover that ground and essentially send Gabriel out there while the other two shift across, with the protection of Partey and, of course, Xhaka, who does his fair share of defensive work as well. You have to say that we're in much better shape to handle the transition. And that gives us the platform upon which we can go out and be a little bit more aggressive in the way we press and in the way we throw numbers forward in search of goals. Let's move on to the front three. And what a front three we have right now. This is my current Arsenal front three. If everybody's fit, if everybody's available, this is what I'm going with. I've really got this feeling going into this season that, last season was kind of I know Saka had shown promise before, but last season was kind of a breakout season for Saka, wasn't it? Where we really saw him take it up to another level, added a lot more outputs, goals, assists, and became a real focal point for this Arsenal side, became a real important key in the cog, whatever you call it. I thought that he really stepped up a level. Can he go further? Yeah, absolutely. I think there was still some things in which Bukayo Saka fell a little bit short. And is there more to come? Absolutely. But I feel like that's going to be the case this season for somebody like Gabriel Martinelli, who's had to be patient under Mikel Arteta. He's had to bide his time. He hasn't always been flavour of the month. And in particular, at the start of last season, when Emile Smith-Rowe was playing really, really well. When I say the start of the season, I mean after the first 3 games. Emile Smith-Rowe was playing really well from that left-hand side. He was scoring goals. He was contributing. And when he, sort of had to come out of the team due to injury problems, he never, ever found a way, really, back in. He came in and out when we had to rotate and when we had to change things up, but injuries were a problem for him. And as a consequence, he was unable to wrestle that position back from Gabby Martinelli. It very much is right now. You'd think Gabby Martinelli's to lose, and he's been performing really, really well of late. But I tweeted something during the game yesterday, and while I've got the tactics board up, I really wanted to kind of home in on this and highlight it. I talked about what a difference it makes when you've got a really mobile and top quality striker up front. And I just want to demonstrate what I mean by that exactly. So one of the things that we used to see quite a lot when Lacazette was the number 9 was the centre forward, Lacazette, drop into a much deeper position in order to essentially vacate the spaces in behind. And hopefully, these spaces that I'm talking about here, in fact, we can probably widen that. Yeah, we can widen that to sort of the width of the penalty area. What he would do is he would drop into these positions and he would try and either drag the centre-backs with him further up the pitch, creating space in behind for the likes of Saka and Martinelli, who we know are capable of running off the shoulder, or he would clear the room and allow those players, Saka and Martinelli, to come infield and directly attack those centre-backs and cause them all sorts of problems, essentially taking the fullbacks out of the game because those players got on their bikes pretty early and will come into those infield positions. But with Gabriel Jesus, it's a little bit different. Why is it different? Because he can do that if he wants to. He can drop into that deeper position. And we've seen already on 3 or 4 occasions in pre-season, the way he spins off of people, the way he has that ability to understand his surroundings, and then the technical quality to pull off some unbelievable turns and basically leave the defenders for dead. But also, because of his mobility and because of his ability to occupy both centre halves, because he is such a threat, because he is so dangerous, he can pop in to these 2 half spaces. The half spaces that Alexander Lacazette just wasn't mobile enough to cover at all times. And that means that Saka can start really wide. That means that Martinelli can start wide. And that means that we've got the ability to have much more width in our game. Now, these 2 guys can drift in field if they want and create room for the overlaps on the outside. But we've now, with Gabriel Jesus, got the ability to apply ourselves in 2 completely different ways. And that means you can vary it up. That means you can mix it up. And that makes it really, really difficult as a defender to deal with our threat. We've seen him also show his versatility in pulling out to the right. He did that a lot against Nuremberg, I thought. We also saw him yesterday take up the left half space where his goal came from, where he received the ball. But also it gives Martinelli, a player that a lot of people have talked about as a future centre forward, the ability to drift infield and plug those holes and get closer to goal, which is ultimately where most of us want to see him. So Gabriel Jesus' mobility, his ability on the ball, his ability to maintain possession even for 2 or 3 seconds and allow people to make runs off him is just so impressive. He's also got a threat in behind, and he's been probably the biggest positive of this US tour so far. Well, it's over now, but you know what I mean. He's been the biggest positive, I would argue. So I think the team is in really, really good shape. I talked about the lack of depth and lack of quality on the bench, and that is still a concern. But, what did we think was going to happen? Did we think that Arsenal were going to go out and sign another 5 40 million pound players this summer in order to make the bench where we want it to be? No, we got to be somewhat fortunate in that hopefully we're not going to have as many injuries as we did last season, because ultimately that's what undone us. I think you can all agree that when we had everybody fit and available, we were a really, really strong side. Problem was that when we started losing 1 or 2 here or there, and we started losing, 2s and 3s, it was a big, big problem. You can often cater for being 1 player down, having one of your players out, trying to change it is not so difficult in that instance. But when you're talking about removing 3 or 4 really key components, it then becomes very, very problematic. So as I say, the bench would have looked a lot healthier, obviously, with Tierney, Vieira, Tomiyasu, and Smith Rowe on it. You've got to bear that in mind. We'll come on to bring you updates on those players a little bit later on in the show. Let's talk about the goals, because the goals were pretty impressive too. The first one coming from Gabriel Jesus, a really poor piece of defending from Chelsea. I think it was Saliba who gave the ball away. Xhaka, with some really, really quick thinking, managed to pick out Gabriel Jesus, who took a couple of touches, looked up, sat Edouard Mendy down on the ground and just dinked it over him beautifully into the far corner. I mean, that's the kind of cold, top-class finish that we've been missing since Aubameyang was at his absolute pomp. And that, unfortunately, hasn't been the case for a long, long time. So, yeah, really enjoyed that one. And the second one was perhaps even more impressive from a team perspective. Really, really good football from Arsenal, working the ball down the left-hand side. Martinelli, where he might have in years gone by panicked and sort of tried to make something happen straight away, just took his time to turn and assess his options, spotted a great run from Martin Ødegaard from right into that slightly inside left position. He picked up the ball and took the touch before, unleashing a low, ferocious effort into the far corner and doubling Arsenal's lead. As for the third goal, what a piece of skill from Granit Xhaka in the lead up to that. I tweeted this earlier on, but had Granit Xhaka scored that, you do know I would have been talking about it for the entire season. Brilliant from him. He was unlucky not to score himself. Bukayo Saka, who I think, based on the replays I saw, was slightly offside, but who cares? It's a friendly. Was right on the scene to capitalize on Mendy sort of not really getting rid of the ball when he dived to the right and made a save. Probably harsh to blame the goalkeeper because the effort from Xhaka was a good one, but Saka just showing a bit more killer instinct, the kind of killer instinct that maybe he is yet to really convince us of in his Arsenal career so far. But that's what you like to see, and he finished it really, really well. And then the fourth goal, listen, I enjoyed all of the goals last night. I thought every single one of them was really good and a real testament to the playing style that we're finally starting to see. You know, we started to see it actually last season. Unfortunately, towards the back end of the season, when we started to pick up a lot of injuries, we had to revert back to a former type, which wasn't ideal, but we had to slightly shift up the dynamic in midfield because we had no Thomas Partey, and Mikel Arteta, without his fullbacks as well, felt that it was too great a risk to play with that lone defensive midfielder or lone deep lying midfielder, whatever you want to call it, without the fullbacks of a high quality as well. And that would be putting too much pressure on the two centre-halves and whoever was tasked with playing in that specific midfield role. So we did revert to that double pivot, and it didn't really work because we lost what we had gained earlier on in the season, which was a much higher intensity, a much greater ability to press and win the ball back and suffocate teams. And you saw that yesterday. We did it to Chelsea. We suffocated Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel's been sort of quite damning of his players and of his team in his post-match press conference. I don't know if any of you have seen it. He talks about the fact that Arsenal were much more emotionally invested, mentally committed, physically committed. They were committed to get exhausted. That's what he said. And, that just goes to show, doesn't it, that I'm not saying we're going to finish above Chelsea because I expect them to do a lot of business in this summer window still, but I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility because there's a very unstable situation there. And this is where, when you listen to managers like Thomas Tuchel talk about that stuff, talk about players wanting to leave and that being a problem, talk about players that he needs to get in, but as up until this point had no luck with, talks about the sanctions that were placed on that club, talks about the reason his attack doesn't get any better is because he's got the same players. You can see the cracks appearing. And so when people sit there and they go, oh, but all of these teams are going to finish above us. Arsenal had the best opportunity ever to get in the Champions League last season and they blew it. I agree it was a good opportunity, but you don't know what the new season brings. You don't know what the new season has in store for us. And what I would say is the stability at Arsenal right now is something that is very, very underrated in terms of it being a positive in our corner. I really do think that. I think the stability that we've got with Mikel Arteta, with Edu, with the group of players that we now have, with the commitment, with the camaraderie, with the team spirit, all of those things are going to help bridge the gap between ourselves and some of the sides who, let's be honest, have much more quality in depth and have some really, really good players on their books. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the game. As I said, the intensity was great. The pressing was great. Some of the patterns of play were honestly beautiful. Really, really good to see. Really, really enjoyed some of the moves, some of the football, and I've really, really enjoyed watching some of the individuals. A really positive tour to the US. As I say, the fans were brilliant, amazing. Just seeing pictures and videos from some of those events pre, during, and post match has convinced me that I'm going to make every effort if Arsenal do a pre-season tour of the US next season to get myself out there so that I can soak it all up. That's my plan. And it will be amazing to meet some of you guys as well that are across the pond, because I know there are plenty. The performances were positive. The results were positive. We managed to get a signing done while we were out there as well. I think the biggest positive, though, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, was the way Gabriel Jesus has just slotted into this team so brilliantly. And the instant upgrade that we've seen as a consequence and as a result of that is just really amazing. So that's my big takeaway from this competition. Okay, we're going to talk about some of Mikel Arteta's post-match comments. We're going to announce the winners of our shirt giveaway competition. Some of you are asking me in the chat if it's too late to enter. It absolutely is. The entries closed, I think, what was it, a few days ago now, maybe a week ago. So I've already done the draws, so you can enter, but your name won't be in the draw. Actually, I got my son to pull out the names. So if you're unhappy with the result, you can blame him. Also, just wanted to mention we did pay tribute to the great Maria Petri on the show that we did on Friday. Had the opportunity to pay tribute to her again yesterday on BBC London. She had been on the BBC London Sports Show just a few years ago, and they played some amazing clips during the program of her and some of the amazing things that she had to say, which was really intriguing. And I was saying this on the radio yesterday, and I want to say it to you guys, because even if I do say so myself, I think it's quite a good point. She was talking about how one of the things that she likes about women's football, perhaps over men's football, is that there isn't this like desire to jump on people so quickly when they make a mistake. There isn't this animosity towards their own players. There isn't this disrespectful narrative that you seem to find when you do follow the men's game, not just in the stadiums but on social media, etc. And it kind of got me thinking yesterday, and I was sitting at Luton Town and thinking about this, and one of the things that came to mind was that somebody like Maria, who was behind Arsenal no matter what, wouldn't have been immune to feeling disappointed, wouldn't have ever been happy when Arsenal, weren't performing. But, she'd always be behind the team. And I think that some people, and I'm not digging out anyone specifically before somebody starts, but I think some people should look at that as an example and just maybe recalibrate in their own minds what it means to be a supporter. You can be critical. You can be constructive in your criticism. And I think that's essential when analyzing football in general. But, you should, for the most part, be behind your team. We talk about it all the time. We want loyalty from our players. We want loyalty from managers. We want people to want to be a part of the Arsenal family and to, bleed Arsenal. But then we as fans have to be the same. We have to be loyal. And sometimes loyalty means defending your team against something that maybe you're not 100% sure is right. I remember when, a couple of examples, I remember when Troy Deeney came out and had a go at Arsenal about having like a soft underbelly or whatever it was exactly that he said. And my instant reaction as an Arsenal supporter was to get defensive and to defend my club. Was there a tiny element of truth in what Troy Deeney was saying? Absolutely. Of course there was. Of course there was. So you take that on board, you absorb it, you process it, you do with it what you need to, but ultimately you defend your club. It was the same when Ivan Toney had a go. You defend your club. And somebody like Maria would have always defended her club 110%. And that's what a supporter is. Doesn't mean you don't understand or see the problems. But when you go out into the bigger, wider world and you come across opposition fans who want to have a go, and in a lot of instances it's unjust, they just want to have a crack at Arsenal, you don't have that. You don't put up with it. You defend your... I'm not saying you go and punch their lights out, but you know what I mean. You stand your ground. You stand up for your team. I think that is the definition of a supporter. And, nothing good comes of Maria's passing. It's really, really sad news. And, I met her a few times and I'm very privileged to have had some conversations with her. But what we can do is we can look back at her legacy, if you like, as I've heard her talked about on TV and on the radio over the last couple of days as a super fan. She's literally a super fan. Those people that stand and shout in front of a camera for effect, they're not super fans. Maria Petri was a super fan. And if someone is a super fan, that suggests, if they're titled a super fan or given that accolade, if you like, that suggests that they are at the very top of the class in terms of fandom. And so that should be the benchmark. That should be the example. I'm not saying everybody can go up and down the country, across the continent, etc., every single week. But what I am saying is that constant backing and that support and that genuine love for the team is something we should look at and try and take forward as we get behind our team going into a new campaign. And obviously it was nice to see Arsenal pay tribute to Maria on social media. I hope there'll be something at the first home game of the season as well. But the team did wear black armbands in respect for the memory of Maria Petri yesterday as well. Okay, let's go over to some of Mikel Arteta's comments, and then we're going to take some of your comments, and then we're going to announce the winners of our competition. But before I do that, I just want to tell you guys, I just want to ask a favor from you as the Chronicles of a Gooner family. We're talking about the Arsenal family. You guys are the Chronicles of a Gooner family. We have got over 800 people live watching me right now on this stream, and we've only got 181 likes on the board. What is that about? Sort it out. Get liking. Get subscribing to the channel as well as we push towards the next benchmark. If you are on YouTube, subscribe, like, leave a comment. If you're listening via audio, subscribe. But also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts specifically, please do leave us a review. It really, really does help get the podcast out to as many people as possible. Got one small further favor to ask. As a lot of you know, I'm a massive Serie A fan, and I have been for many, many years, and I've covered Serie A very, very closely over the last few years. And we often talk about it on this show because often there's a crossover. Often we're talking about players that may be linked with Arsenal from Serie A, and you guys want to know what I think about them. And from time to time, we get various guests on. Now, some of you will remember a couple of years ago, I started a Serie A podcast that was called Simply Serie A. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I used to do it with Vittorio Campanile, who was on this show just a few weeks ago, talking Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, Tommy Milanese, another one of our esteemed panelists. We've also got Alessandro Erimiti from 90 Min, who is joining. We've got Jack Gallagher, who's going to contribute as well. And of course, we're going to take it up to a whole new level. It is back. Simply Serie A is back. It starts in a couple of weeks' time. And if I could kindly ask you, if you could go onto whichever podcast store it is that you use, this is not available on YouTube. It is solely a podcast. Please do go into your podcast app, search for Simply Serie A, and give it a subscribe. 90 Min have been very, very kind in supporting me to bring back Simply Serie A and to help me make it a much more polished an informative product, as well as ensuring that I can give it the time and dedication that it needs. So Simply Serie A is coming back in just a few weeks' time. So if you could go over, give it a subscribe, I'd be very, very grateful. We've got some great new panelists. We've got the former panelists as well. It is going to be bigger and better than ever. So please do get involved. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, right. Let's have a look at some of Mikel Arteta's comments post the game last night. Now, of course, there is a lot of excitement around what happened last night, and we've got to remember that it is a preseason friendly, and we do have to take it with a pinch of salt. You know, I'm not naive enough to think that isn't the case. Mikel Arteta was asked whether Arsenal supporters post-match should be excited by this team, and he said yes, but it was a friendly match. As you could see, there are a lot of positives to take from the game, the way we played, the intensity we showed, the way we were trying to show who we are as a team. But at the same time, it's just a test match. Don't get carried away. There are still a lot of things that we have to get better at and do better. But I think it's good to get some momentum, finish the tour in the right way, give some enjoyment to our fans and everybody that's been contributing to make this tour happen. Now it's time to go back to London to focus and keep making improvements and steps forward. I completely agree. Lots of positives to take away from that. Lots of exciting things on show and on display, but ultimately it is just a pre-season friendly. He was also asked about the importance of getting business done early. He said it's ideal for any coach that you ask. The earlier you get the players, the better, because you need to get them in with the cohesion of the team. You need to get them understanding each other, relaxed and comfortable socially around the team. And the fact that Jesus, has been with us for a few weeks now makes a huge, huge difference. He was asked about whether the result in any way, shape or form changes anything about the transfer strategy. And he said nothing. Again, don't get carried away. There are a lot of positives. There are a lot of things we can do much, much better than we have done today as well. And we have to continue to improve in the team. I'm not going to touch on every single one because, you know, there's too much to go through. You can watch it. You can read the transcript yourself. But he was asked about the back four because obviously, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, it was a slightly different back four. You know, we're talking essentially about playing three centre backs in the back four with Zinchenko, who's probably more of a midfielder than a left back in there as well. But Mikel Arteta said this: at the moment, Tierney and Tomiyasu are not fit. We have other options, but I think it was good to try different things to build some relationships in big matches, and I'm happy with the way we played. He was also asked his thoughts on the new boy, Alex Zinchenko, who made his Arsenal debut in Orlando. He said he was desperate to play, and I knew that. It was a maximum of 45 minutes, but you could see straight away he was comfortable. He understands everything that I want. He understands the process, and I thought he had a really good game. Now on to some of the juicy stuff. He was asked, obviously, about William Saliba. We talked about it earlier on, about the fact that William Saliba now is a much more accomplished and I think well-rounded centre-back than the one we let go out on loan at the start of last season. But he says on William Saliba, I'm really pleased to see the way he's playing, the way he's adapted to the team, the maturity that he's shown at just 21 years old. Carry on doing it. We will keep developing him. He has a huge potential. He's already a top player, and we have to make him even better. He was asked if he was ready, and he said he looked ready to me today. I think he looked ready to all of us, Mikel. He was also asked about the fitness of Fabio Vieira and Takehiro Tomiyasu, both of which were not involved, not included. They're both on the tour. They're both out in the States with the team, but neither were involved in any of the match day squads. Mikel said, yeah, Tommy is really close to start doing some training sessions, hopefully next week, and Fabio will probably need a little bit longer. I think he needs another week or so before he starts with the team, but he's been working hard and has been really unlucky to start his Arsenal career in this way. But again, he's fitting in well. Now, a lot of our hearts sunk as well in the second half last night when Gabriel Jesus went down with a knock in the first half and then went off in the second half. Mikel was asked about his fitness, and he said, yeah, he's got a knock in the first half in his quad. I think it was, and it wasn't very comfortable to continue. And obviously we didn't want to take any risks today. Yeah, look, you can't be taking risks at this point. You really can't. That's about it from the press conference. I'm not going to dwell on the other points. As I say, you can go and read it if you want. You can watch it if you want. Arpit Yadav says, great content, reading out articles for us because we can't. We're not just reading them though, are we? We're kind of sharing thoughts and pinging things back and forth between each other while we're reading them. But hey, each to their own. Okay. Look, I know you've all been waiting for this. I know you all want to know who the winners of the Arsenal shirts are. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's let you know who it is that's picked up those Arsenal shirts. Actually, do you know what? Let's check in where we are on the likes first. We've only got 257 likes on the board. Until we get to close to 400, I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. I'm just going to sit here in silence. Just kidding. Look, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. We've got nearly 900 of you now watching across the multiple platforms, so please do smash that like button. Let's try and get it up to as close to 400 as possible between now and the end of the stream. Like, subscribe as well as we continue to push towards the next benchmark. Okay, right, let's do it. Let's tell you who is going to be the receivers, who are going to be the receivers of the brand new Arsenal home shirt. We've got 3 to give away. These names have been picked completely at random. And I have to say a massive thank you, because we had over 1,200 people enter this competition. 1,200 people. That is mad. Over 1,200 of you either emailed me or did what was asked on Twitter in order to put your names in the hat for this giveaway competition. Not everybody could win, unfortunately, because I'll be bankrupt, probably have to sell my house. But we did say we'd give away 2 initially. Then we added a third because we hit the 20K mark in terms of subscribers here on YouTube way before I was planning to or thought was possible. So we added another one. So now we're giving away 3. And the winners are, in no particular order. Number 1, Ravi Guthra, who emailed me and listens to the program via Spotify on a daily basis from India. Ravi, thank you so much for your support of the show and of the podcast. And thank you for entering the competition. What I need you to do now, Ravi, is email me your address that you want the shirt shipped to. I also need to know what size you want. Maybe go on the Arsenal website, check the sizes that are available. Obviously, there's small, medium, large, extra large, etc. Let me know if you want to find the measurements, if that helps. I don't know if the system where you are is a little bit different. I know in different countries, different sizing applies, but go on the Arsenal website, check out what size it is that you want. Email me your address and I will get that shipped out to you within the next week. And it'll probably take, I'd imagine, about a week or so to get there, if not slightly longer. But it will be on its way out to you by the end of this week coming. But the sooner you get me the name, I beg your pardon, the sooner you get me your address and details, the size that you want, the sooner I can get that out to you. Okay, so that's our first winner. Lots of shout outs to Ravi in the chat. There you go. Okay, next up, look at everybody putting their shirt sizes in as if I'm going to send you all an Arsenal shirt. I got kids to feed, Jesus. The next winner comes from another part of the world, another continent, in fact, and that is Moses Quasi. Moses, thank you so much for your entry as well, my friend. Really, really appreciate it. I'm not going to out you in terms of the name that you go by on YouTube, but yeah, Moses, thank you so much for your entry. And again, same applies. Let me know your size, let me know the shipping address, and I'll get that out to you ASAP. So those are our 2 non-member winners, but we've got a members winner as well. And remember, the members are in a much smaller pot, and the members pretty much all know each other as well. So there's going to probably be a little bit of banter here in the Discord server when this comes out. But listen, these draws are done completely at random. Next time I'll probably do it on the show. Basically, I'll tell you what happened. So I was going to do it on the show today, right? And as some of you would have seen that signed into the stream a little bit earlier on. So over the last few days, I've been using these. Where are they? anyway, some post-it notes, and I've been cutting them up into small little pieces because I'm sad. And I have been putting all your names on and putting them all into like a box. And the plan was that I would draw them live on the show. That was what I wanted to do today. Unfortunately, this morning, my wife decided that she wanted to go out for a coffee with some of her friends, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Don't worry about the fact that I'm absolutely shattered because I've stayed up till 3:30 gushing over Arsenal's performance over Chelsea. What I did was I said, I'll look after the kids and you can go. That's fine. I didn't resist. She's always at home all the time. She gets fed up. She wants to go out and enjoy herself as well. And I said, you know what? I'm tired, but it'll be fine. No problem. Anyway, my son, during that 3-hour period she was gone, was as naughty as he's probably ever been in his entire life. And so I thought, how can I occupy him for a little bit? How can I get this kid to just chill out, stop running around the house, stop making a racket at the risk of waking up his sister as well? What can I do? So I let him make the draw. I let him sit on the living room floor with the box in front of him and pull out some random names. And there he did. So he is the one that has pulled out these names. And the name that I'm about to give you for the members shirt is obviously I love every single one of you, right? Because all of you have really contributed and supported this show, and obviously continue to do so, not just in terms of your support, but financially as well, which is amazing. I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so grateful for the little community that we've kind of built and put together. But there's one person in particular who has kind of been sort of following my journey from day one, I would say, or very early on at least, who isn't afraid to give me constructive feedback whenever I need it, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, who I went and sat down and had a lovely meal with pre an Arsenal game. And this has been one of the biggest supporters. This guy has been one of the biggest supporters. And look, I'd have loved every one of you to win. But this person in particular has been an incredible support to me, and I'm so thankful. So I'm delighted to say that the winner of the shirt, pulled out by my son Antonio completely randomly, is the brilliant Graham Sutherland. Graham, thank you so much, mate, for all that support that you've shown me and given me over the last few years. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, the shirt is yours. So, Graham, give me an address, give me the size that you want, and I will get that out to you by the end of next week. Yours is in the UK, so it shouldn't take as long to get to you. But yeah, Graham, congratulations, and congratulations to the other winners too. Thank you to everybody who entered the competition. Appreciate every single one of you. You're all amazing. Thank you so much. Look at this. Craig Tanner says, Harry has pulled out his own name, hasn't he? I could just buy myself one, mate, if I want one. No, honestly, thank you to everyone who entered. Thank you to everybody who participated in the competition. Thank you to everybody for tuning into this show on a very, very regular basis. Love to every single one of you. You've got a super chat I'm going to quickly do before we disappear off into the sunshine this afternoon. Let's take this one from Gunner Down Under, who says, do you believe Vieira is the one we've signed for that left-sided 8 role? If not, it's clear Tielemans isn't our top target for number 8. Otherwise, he'd be done by now. Has to be another huge name in Tielemans if we don't pull that off. I'm not really sure what position. I'm not really sure what position Fabio Vieira has been brought into play, if I'm being completely honest. I said to you guys when we first made that signing that I didn't think that we would throw him straight into the deep end in that center of midfield unless the environment was right in which to do so. And what I mean by that is maybe a home game against what you call lesser opposition, maybe in the Europa League, maybe in the Cups. I think that that's how he's going to find his feet in this team. I think that personally, he'll be seen as someone that can play midfield, but also who can play from the left or from the right as well. I think that's something that he has in his armory that appeals to Mikel Arteta. I guess we're going to have much more clarity around that when the window slams shut and we know what the conclusion is to Arsenal's hopes and ambitions for this window. I think only then can we really kind of make that assessment. And the problem is that because Fabio Vieira has been unavailable in pre-season, we haven't had any inkling or indication sent our way as to how, how he might fit in. But my gut tells me that he'll be seen as an alternative to Martin Ødegaard at the moment, because we don't have another Martin Ødegaard. My gut tells me that he will get some game time when he first comes into the side, maybe from the right, maybe from the left, to avoid putting him into a physical midfield and being thrown into the deep end in the Premier League, where it's much more intense right at the start of his Arsenal career. So I'd imagine he's going to be used in a number of positions at the start. But what does the long-term future look like for Fabio Vieira? The honest answer, mate, is I don't know at this stage. And with no evidence to go by, it's very, very hard to make a prediction on that. But we'll find out, won't we, by the end of the window, if he was indeed the person that Arsenal saw as coming in and playing that left 8 role, if indeed he is such a well thought of signing within the club that they're not going to go out and do any more. Who knows, mate? Time will tell. Thank you so much, though, for your very kind donation to the channel. It is much, much appreciated. Right, we're going to leave it there. Going to love you all and leave you. Go and enjoy the sunshine. Go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday if you're having a day off. Don't forget to go over and subscribe to Simply Serie A, my Italian football podcast that is getting a bit of a revamp and a reboot thanks to 90 Min. You can subscribe to it now on all major podcast stores, and we've got a bigger and better panel than ever coming together for the start of this new upcoming campaign. Subscribe to Simply Serie A, subscribe to this very YouTube channel. Make sure you leave a like on the video, and I will see you all soon. Until next time, take care. Goodbye.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.